Inside England's most overcrowded prison with inhumane conditions and notorious inmates, and it is no other than HMP Wandsworth, an old Victorian prison, much like all of the Victorian prisons, which are remand prisons, and they all are also sentence prisons, but these are local prisons in cities that you go straight to from the court before you're processed and sent on to the other prisons. Now, HMP Wandsworth, a bit like HMP Durham, was actually opened in 1851, 175 years ago. And that prison has had a lot of controversy over them years. But HMP Wandsworth has made headlines because the Victorian jail is holding 62% more people than it is designed for and is the most overcrowded prison in England and the UK, according to the figures. Now, a lot of you will have heard of HMP Wandsworth when the screw was getting banged in the pad. What was her name again? Something D'Souza. She was getting a good old stiff one off one of the pad mates while the other pad mate was videoing it, and then they circulated it on social media, and Wandsworth become infamous for the screw getting screwed. So the aging Victorian jail has been exposed as the most overcrowded prison in the country, with inmates packed in like sardines. Scandal hit HMP Wandsworth is currently bursting at the seams, housing a staggering 62% more inmates than it was ever built to hold. So, new figures, and the new Ministry of Justice stats reveal the Category B site is currently home to 1,444 prisoners, despite only having enough space for 894, because some of the pads, same as Durham, you can put your arms out like that and touch either side. They're designed for one man. They're not even big enough for one man. But what do? They chuck two prisoners in together. Got to shit and eat in front of each other inside of them pads. And 894 men it was built for. And it's housing fucking over 500 more, 600 nearly, more than what it should have. The Howard League for Penal Reform has slammed the conditions as inhumane, warning that high security jails are a constantly churning mess. Well, it's not it's Category B, local prison, so it's not classed as a high security prison as such. And like I said, it's a Category B local prison, obviously in Wandsworth, London, and it's an adult male prison, and it is fucking bursting at the seams. Like I say though, it's not the only one. HMP Durham, HMP Leeds, there's loads of local jails like this that are absolutely bursting at the seams. They're understaffed, overcrowded, rampacked, full of all sorts. It's a fucking playground for certain prisoners because they go in there full of addictions and whatever they get in there, and they swap one addiction for another. There's plenty of spizzle, there's plenty of fucking subbies, there's plenty of all sorts in these nicks, there's plenty of blowers, there's plenty of stuff going on, plenty of drones flying in. It's a fucking Disneyland for the criminals that want that type of jail. Because obviously prisoners that want to progress, more so the lifers and the IPPs, certain IPPs, want to progress and get on with the time. And these fucking prisons are run rampant with phones, narcotics, everything you can think of. People are going in these jails without habits and coming out addicts just to cope with the fucking absolute carnage what is going on inside of these jails. They try to ease it by giving people, or giving the prisoners, only 40%, letting loads of prisoners out who were just serving little sentences in the first place, letting them all out on licence, giving them double the amount of licence, and guess what? Some of them weren't even lasting 24 hours. They were doing it all fucking wrong. They were letting out the wrong type of prisoner. Prisoners that have been in for a fucking a considerable amount of time, years on end, even the lifers who have changed themselves inside a jail. These are the ones that should have been letting out, the ones that had actually rehabilitated themselves inside a prison and they were fit for release, but they had years left. But what did they do? They let out the junkies, the ones that had only just came in, hadn't even had time to be rehabilitated, weren't even serving long enough sentences to be rehabilitated, and they were letting them straight back out with addictions. So what were they going to do? Straight back to crime to fund their addictions. These fucking prisons are absolutely rampacked, and it is done by design. They don't want prisoners to be rehabilitated. They want this to be a merry-go-round so that it can generate more money. So to cope with the surge, bosses are reportedly forcing 2 cons into tiny single cells, which they've been doing for years. But obviously some of the cells should be single cells and they're just chucking double beds in. Bunks, sorry, not doubles. They would love it to be fucking doubles, especially the Bacons. But they're giving them bunk beds, chucking in, taking out the single beds and chucking in a bunk bed to fit 2 of them in. And like I say, inhumane conditions. I've been in the cell where the fucking pad is about 9 foot long if you're lucky. You've got to go back to your pads to eat your food. Prisoners, if you fucking can't hold it in, you've got to sit and have a shit. And then the pads fucking lift them because there's vents on the windows. They no longer open up where you could get fresh air and stand at the window whilst your fucking padmate was shitting. They put vents in, and the fucking vents were fucked. They don't open no more. And when you put a fucking form in to get the fucking vents fixed, 3 months later, they're still not fixed. You can't even open the vents. There is no circulation getting in. And when your padmate takes a shit, or you take a shit, then your fucking padmate has got to suffer the consequences of that shit, especially if sometimes there used to be a rule, you're not shitting in the pad when we're both in together. Wait till it's association time or gym time or whatever. That's what a lot of prisoners had for rules, just to cope with it. And when there is no association because it's understaffed, they don't open up the doors, they don't let you out for a shower, you're fucking stinking in the pad. And if you get a scruffy padmate that stinks a BO, it's fucking torture. So while others are being tripled up in rooms meant for 2, so some of the pads, they've got a single bed there and a single there and just tiny little bit in between. They're then putting doubles in to put 3 into a pad, which is absolutely fucking beyond comprehension. So, but Wandsworth isn't the only one breaking point. Like I've just mentioned, HMP Leeds is hot on its heels, 61% capacity, over capacity, followed closely by HMP Durham, 59%. The Southwest London prison has lurched from one PR disaster to another. So if you remember in 2023, September 2023, I done a video on here, ex-soldier Daniel Khalif, who they were saying was a terrorist, which I come on and I saying was he fuck, it was a load of shite. He managed to flee the nick by clinging to the underside of a food delivery truck. He was eventually nabbed on a canal path after a nationwide manhunt. Wandsworth faced fresh fury after the accidental release of Algerian national Brahim Kadoua Sharif in 2025. Disgraced screw, that was it, Linda de Souza Abreu was banged up for 15 months for getting banged by the prisoner while the other inmate was videoing it. After a social media video of her having sex with an inmate in a cell went viral on social media. The jail was slapped with an urgent improvement notice and placed under special measures in 2024, and inspectors found a sustained decline permitted to happen in plain view of leaders. Shockingly, staff often had no idea where inmates even were. And when they were looking for them, searching for them on the wings, despite nearly 900 grand being pumped into the jail. Wow, nearly £1 million pumped into the jail after the escape of Daniel Khalif. An independent monitoring board report from October painted a bleak picture of the 175-year-old Nick crumbling fortress, noting that a third of staff are off sick or absent on any given day. The board didn't mince words, describing the rotten living conditions as unacceptable and inhumane, but yet it hasn't been shut down. They haven't built another fucking Nick, another big, more modern Nick, which they need to do. To get on top of situations like this, they need to fucking get more staff in, give them proper training, and build bigger, more modern prisons. Which they have done, but they've went to shit as well. Yeah, which one was it? It was HMP Millsike, I think it is, and HMP Berwyn, I believe it is, a super prison. They did try and do that, but they didn't get a hold of it, and they went to fucking shit as well. But despite the horror stories, there may be light at the end of the tunnel. An inspection last April found a new governor had brought energy and focus to the job, making safety a priority. Whoa, he brought energy to the job. He's dishing out Red Bull to the block screws, and the block screws are bashing up the inmates in the block. That's the only fucking energy he's brought to the job. However, while there has been a substantial investment in new staff, watchdog bosses warned that the team is still dangerously inexperienced. Wow, that is one dangerous fucking shithole. It's a shithole for the prisoners having to live in them conditions. It's a dangerous shithole for the screws having to work in them conditions. But it's also dangerous for the inmates that are fucking newly sentenced and in there wanting to just get on with the time and being surrounded by all that fucking shit what's going on. And again, I will mention it because it is full of illegal migrants as well. Bacons at that, I was going to say. Bacons at that. Illegal migrant bacons are infesting the UK prisons as well. Not just the bacons, illegal migrants should be getting fucking chucked in deportation centres, but they're waiting for them to commit crimes and chucking them into places like Wandsworth and making the place an even more of a fucking shithole. But I'm going to leave that one there for now. People, I just thought I would bring that to your attention because the headline was, like I said at the beginning, inside the country's most overcrowded shithole with inhumane conditions and notorious inmates. But if you are enjoying the content, people, remember to comment, like and subscribe. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. But most importantly, people, stay safe. Keep out of the nick. Keep out of those shitholes because you don't want to end up in a place like Wandsworth or HMP Durham.